my name is Lyndi Rivers from Radiant Root Yoga Therapy. I am a certified yoga therapist who specializes in working with individuals with pelvic floor disorders. So I'm going to take you through one of my favorite sequences that I like to do to help kind of open and relax the pelvic floor and to allow us to find a little bit of an easier stretch in the pelvic floor, to allow those pelvic floor muscles to lengthen a little bit more, and to hopefully begin to feel the breath a little bit more deeply at the base of the pelvis as well. And so I have today my model, Fred, who's I'm just gonna use to just kind of talk about kind of the main landscapes we want to be paying attention to. So at the very top here is our pelvic crest. So on our own bodies, we sometimes think of that as kind of the top of the hips. So kind of that awareness here of that iliac crest. In the very front is the pubic symphysis, right in the front of the body. At the very back is our sacrum and tailbone. So you can even feel back, kind of know where your tailbone is. And at the very bottom, we have our sits bones on either side, left and right. And when we inhale, our sits bones should slightly move away from each other. As we exhale, they draw back in. And so we want to begin to feel into a little bit of that subtle movement that can happen at the base of the body. Again, on the inhale, the sits bones move away, and on the exhale, they gently recoil back in. And different movements will kind of support a little bit more that movement of the sits bones. For today's practice, ideally you're going to have a block available and a blanket. So you're going to begin by finding your way into table pose. So I oftentimes recommend putting a blanket underneath the knees for a little bit more support. You'll want to have your block closer to the front of your mat. So as you find table pose, your knees are underneath the hips, your wrists are underneath the shoulders, and you're feeling your natural lengthening of the spine. So forehead kind of reaching ahead, sits bones reaching back behind you. And take a few moments just to kind of find the breath here. So as you inhale, you might feel the belly, ribs expand. As you exhale, you might feel that gentle retraction. So staying here just for a few breaths, awareness of the breath moving into the belly. You might feel the belly descend on that inhale, and on the exhale, the natural kind of drawing up and in. And from here, we're going to begin to find cat-cow movement. So on your exhale, you're gently tucking the tailbone, rounding the back, gaze is towards the belly. On the inhale, you're lifting the tailbone, arching the back, gaze is the head. So exhale, tucking and rounding. Inhale, lifting and arching. And so as you do this, you might begin to become a little bit more aware of that movement in the sits bones. So as you inhale and begin to arch the back, you'll feel the sits bones move apart. As you exhale and round, you'll feel the sits bones move back in towards each other. So doing this just a few times on your own, allowing yourself just to begin to feel into that movement. So this sequence can be really nice to do at the end of the day if you've been spending a lot of time seated, as a way of really kind of releasing any tightness in the pelvic floor. And then you're going to come back to a neutral position. You're going to find child's pose. So your knees are going to come wide, big toes to touch, bringing your hips back towards your heels as you walk your arms out in front, forehead coming towards the floor. If you need to, you could always have a bolster also available that you can bring your forehead to, or bring underneath the torso in some way, or use that block underneath your forehead. But as you find your way into child's pose, letting yourself pause here. And once again, connecting to the breath. And so feeling yourself breathe, kind of a nice, long, slow, soft breath. And see if you can begin to feel into the subtleness of your pelvic floor. So again, on the inhale, you might feel your sits bones move away from each other. And on the exhale, they're gently drawing back in towards each other. And so you're not trying to force this movement or try to make anything happen, but you're beginning to just allow yourself to just begin to tune in to the subtleness of the breath at the base of the body. So staying here for a few more rounds of breath. And then gently coming back to table pose. Bring your knees back in so they're right underneath the hips. You're going to find that block and you're going to bring it to the mat in front of you, bringing both hands onto the block and stepping that left foot in front. And you're going to begin to just slowly move back and forth a few times. So as you find that movement, you're just beginning to notice what's happening at the base of that right sits bone. What are you feeling? Notice if there's any sensation in the thigh in any way, honoring whatever's happening in your own body. And then you're going to begin to find some circles. So you're going to maybe bring the hips back and around and forward. And you're just moving around in this way, circling that hip. You can almost imagine as if there was a crayon or a marker attached to your sits bone, noticing the circle you might make along the wall back behind you. And then you're going to circle in the opposite direction. And you might notice if circling in one way feels easier than the other, if there's different sensation happening at the base of the body. And then coming back to a neutral place and bringing yourself back into child's pose. So once again, knees are wide, big toes come to touch, head and forehead come to the floor. Coming back to the breath. So as you rest here this time and notice the breath, just notice, is there a difference for you between the left and the right side of the pelvic floor? Allowing your attention to be deeply inward. Softening the breath. As you're here too, checking in, making sure your jaw and your shoulders are relaxed. Whole body really kind of softens here. And then you're going to come back up to table. You're once again going to grab your block, bring both hands onto the block, and you're going to step now that left foot in front. And again, you're just finding that movement forward and back. And as you find that forward and back movement, you're just kind of noticing what's happening at the base of that left sits bone. You might even notice for yourself if one side feels tighter than the other. And then you're going to begin to find some circling movement. So that left hip kind of moves out to the side and then in and around. And this may not always feel like the most graceful movement. That's okay. Just letting yourself kind of be with what's happening. And then you're going to go in the opposite direction. And then you're going to come back to center. Once again, hands come to the floor. Bring that left leg back. Finding child's pose again. And this time, as you're in child's pose, just seeing, again, what's happening in the pelvic floor now? How does it feel to be in this shape? Has anything shifted or changed for you? As you breathe into the pelvis, again, notice, what does that movement feel like? Do you feel like there's more space? And perhaps here beginning to find a reverse Kegel. So on your next inhale, you're inhaling for a count of 5. You're going to hold for a count of 3. And then you're going to exhale for a count of 5. So I'll walk you through a few, and then I'll have you do a few on your own. So take a moment to find an exhale. And then inhale for 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. So doing this on your own for just a few more breaths, letting yourself feel the inhale really help to stretch the pelvic floor, holding the stretch, and then that exhale is that gentle release, recoil of the pelvic floor muscles. And you're still in that really relaxed child's pose. And then gently allowing yourself to come up and out. And just kind of finding your way back to a comfortable seat. And you could sit up on that blanket or on a bolster. Once you find that seat here, again, just notice, how do your sits bones feel? How does the breath feel in this upright seated position? We're going to come into Trimudi Mudra. So thumbs are going to come to your belly button. Index fingers are going to point down towards the pelvis. Let your shoulders relax. Spine is elongated. There's a little tuck in the chin as the crown of the head reaches up towards the ceiling. And your eyes will gently close. And just allowing yourself to connect again to your pelvic bowl, to your breath. Taking a moment here to say something really kind to yourself, or to thank your pelvic floor for all the ways that it supports your body. And then gently release. And enjoy moving through the rest of your day with a little bit more relaxed and open pelvis.